Hello everyone, my name is Katherine Batres and I am the Associate Director for the Office of Admissions at International American University. For today's video, we're going to go ahead and do a step-by-step tutorial on how to pre-evaluate and compile a completed admissions portfolio, also known as an AP. This video is specifically for initial applicants. Initial applicants are those who are interested in applying for an F1 visa. They will be applying from outside of the U.S., out at a U.S. embassy or consulate. So we're going to go ahead and start off by going over the application for admissions. So the document that you're looking at right now, it would be the first page out of 4. The first page basically goes over instructions on how to apply for admissions. We also list the 6 intakes where we have open enrollment for students to apply. And the following is just the admissions process and the steps that it typically takes from the start to the finish of an application process. The second page is the admissions portfolio checklist. This checklist is actually very helpful. We highly recommend that applicants and agents utilize this to mark off any documents that have been submitted to them so that they know what is missing and what still needs to be collected and what has been submitted. As you'll notice, the text in blue basically lists each part and what documents need to be submitted by a specific status or which type of specific applicant. Since this video is primarily focused on initial applicants, we know that stated by the blue text here, initial applicants have to submit all documents under Part 1 and all documents under Part 2. When a student or an initial applicant begins submitting documents, again, it would be helpful if they checked off every document that they have submitted. If an applicant deems that they have submitted all requirements and not all of the checkboxes here have been checked off, more than likely that means that the application is still incomplete. So we highly suggest that this page be utilized. Moving on to page 3, which is the actual admissions application itself. So the application has to be typed. We do not accept any handwritten applications just to make sure that the information is legible and we have all the correct information in our student system once we start evaluating documents and placing them in our system. So for section 1, I went ahead and did basically a demonstration for a student and what a complete application should look like when evaluating this specific document. So for section 1, all applicants have to submit or input their legal name and last name. If the applicant does not have a last name or a surname as listed on the passport, then they can just go ahead and type in all the information under first name here. They will need to submit a telephone number. Initial applicants will most likely need to submit or input their foreign telephone number. We also need them to input their email address. This is the preferred method of contact. So this is basically going to be where we will be communicating with the student directly. They also need to input their date of birth in the following format. So month, day, and year. They will go ahead and select their current status, input their country of citizenship, country of birth, and city of birth. If the applicant was referred by an agent or somebody in the IAU community, they will go ahead and list them here next to the how did you hear about IAU. Moving on to section 2A, initial applicants are not required to fill out this field here. However, they do have to input their foreign address under section 2B. The foreign address is very crucial information as it is required when we are generating the initial applicant's I-20. If the applicant has any dependents that they plan on bringing with them as F2 dependents, they will need to fill out section 3 here. Dependents can only be a child or a spouse. It cannot be any other relative. If the applicant has more than 2 dependents, then they can fill out another page 3, simply including the additional dependents. They do not have to fill out the entire form again. They would just need to include the extra dependents on another third page of the application and submit it with this main application. For section 4, they will go ahead and select the program that they're interested in applying for. For this specific example, I went ahead and chose the Bachelor of Business Administration, otherwise known as the BBA. The student must also enter the year they're interested in applying and the term. This is very important as this lets us know which program start date the student is aiming to go to their visa interview and hopefully enrolling into their program. And then moving on to the method of instruction, we also ask that they select which campus they're interested in applying for. And next is the English proficiency. More than likely, the student may have to select that English is not their native language, and they must provide evidence of English proficiency. Section 5 is basically the certification, where they are basically just stating that all the information that they have placed above is true and correct. The applicant can go ahead and either input a digital signature or they can type a signature. Both methods are acceptable as long as there is a signature placed here. We also need the student to date the application as well. Page 4 of the application is basically a questionnaire to help us get to know the student, understand the student. So for the skill assessment section, there are a few questions that the student has to read thoroughly and answer, whether it applies to them. This section, if a student does select no, does not automatically disqualify them from admissions. It just helps us better understand the resources and the experience that the student has so that we can deem if they are a fit candidate for the program and how well they are going to be able to succeed in their program. So we do ask that all initial applicants review these questions and just answer yes or no truthfully. They will have to type or sign their name here and here. So there are two fields that need to be filled out, and then the date as well. Moving on to the acknowledgement section, the applicants again will have to read these questions thoroughly and answer yes or no for what applies to them. For question number 3 specifically, if the applicant was referred by a member of the IU community, whether it be a partner, an agent, and they did list them on page 3 next to the how did you hear about IU, we do ask that they select yes so an admissions advisor can double check and input that information into our records. And for question number 4, it's related to transfer credit. So if a student would like to have an admissions advisor evaluate their transcripts for any previous programs that they may have completed or any previous courses they may have completed at the same educational level for the program they intend to apply for here at IAU, we do ask that they select yes. So upon evaluation, we will need students' transcripts to verify the courses and the grades that they received. And then we just like to note that transfer credit can only be done at the same educational level. So for example, if a student previously completed an associate's degree and they would like to transfer over some of those credits to the bachelor's degree here at IAU, we can do that because it's at the same educational level. Master's courses or master's units can be transferred over to the doctorate program because they're both at the graduate level. So transfer credit can be done from ASBA to BBA or MBA to DBA, but it cannot be from a bachelor's program to the master's program because one program is undergraduate and the other is a graduate level. So it's just something to look at and explain to the student or the applicant if they do decide that they would like transfer credit. Moving on to the final portion of the application for admissions is the emergency contact information. So in case anything were ever to happen to the student while on campus, we do ask that they put either a relative, a close friend, or just a person that they trust. So if anything were to happen to them, we can reach out and let them know. They would have to input their emergency contact info's first name, last name, telephone number, and the relationship to the student. So that basically concludes the information that should be evaluated and looked at for the application for admissions. Again, if you look at the application checklist, you'll see that that is the first requirement. We're now going to go ahead and move on to the signed performance fact sheet, which is the next document that should be in the admissions portfolio. The school performance fact sheet here is also posted on our website. The student will need to fill out the specific SPFS for the program that they intend to apply for. For example, since Joe Eagle is interested in applying for the BBA program, his school performance fact sheet will reflect the BBA program's SPFS. You will notice that the years here are a little backdated. That's perfectly fine. If the document is currently posted on our website, that is the most recent document that needs to be filled out by the applicant. So once the applicant goes ahead and reviews the information, such as our graduation rates, employment information, then they can go ahead and basically initial and date on all the required designated fields, as you can see here. Okay, there are a few fields, and each of them have to be filled out. If there is a field that is missing an initial or a date, we will have to ask applicants to resubmit the document. So just as a pre-evaluation, it's always best to just make sure that all fields have been filled out properly. For page 5 here, the applicant will have to print their name, sign their name, and date here. Again, this can be typed, it can be a digital signature, it can even be handwritten only for the SPFS. We can accept those 3 methods for this document. Under school official, the applicant can go ahead and leave that blank. The institution and administrative staff will go ahead and take care of that. We do need all 7 pages to be submitted in order to consider this requirement met. Page 6 and 7 are basically just definitions and the student's rights to cancel, just informing them of this information, but we do need the applicant to submit all 7 pages. After the school performance fact sheet, they should include their payment. So for the application fee and the I-20 processing fee. Okay. A receipt is usually what would be inputted here. Next is the photo. So the applicant must submit a 2x2 photo with a white background. Okay, so this photo here is basically a perfect example of the kind of photo that we need. You can see that it includes from the student's shoulders all the way up to above the top of the head, and it is a perfect white background. Many times there are situations where students will scan a photo or take a photo of their photo, and the background will come out either like a gray or a blue. That cannot be accepted. It has to be a solid white background, as this will be utilized for the student's ID card. The academic credentials will be specific depending on the program that the student is applying for. Since Joe Eagle is applying to the bachelor's program, he's able to submit a copy of a high school diploma or high school transcripts. So this is the example that you're looking at here. As long as the document states the applicant's name and that they did complete the program, we're able to accept this high school diploma for undergraduates only, so the ASBA or BBA program. I went ahead and included a very small snippet and slide of the different academic credentials that are required per program. So again, if the student is applying for an ASBA or BBA program, a copy of a high school diploma or transcript is sufficient, or an original transcript of any degree that they may have earned. If the student is applying for the MBA program, then we will need an original transcript of a completed bachelor's degree. If the student is applying for the DBA program, we will need an original transcript of a bachelor's degree and an original transcript of a master's degree. And that typically will go under the photo portion here. We don't need a copy of all of their transcripts or previous education. Again, if the student is applying for the MBA program, we do not need a copy of the bachelor's. Just the bachelor's transcript will suffice. You want to be sure that the documents that are being placed in the admissions portfolio are only the requirements that the applicant is required to submit. The next requirement would be a resume. You'll notice that many of the fields here are blacked out just to, basically respect the student's privacy. This is basically example of an actual student's completed AP. So we wanted to just give you guys a live example. But typically the resume, I believe it's also known as a CV, would go under the transcripts here. We basically just want to keep track of the student's experience as they grow here at IAU. There's really nothing that would disqualify them in their resumes, you know, if they didn't have like certain employment or education information listed here. It's just we need this as a business school, and we also just want to see their growth as the student moves on and just completes and furthers their education here. So the resume is required, and we also have a sample of this on our downloads page on our website if the student you know, is probably fresh out of high school, joining the undergraduate program, and they're not really sure how to fill out a resume. So IAU has many ways for English proficiency to be met. We have several standardized exams with minimum scores depending on the program that students can take, or maybe they have taken and they can submit those scores. For this student specifically, the language of instruction at his institution was completed in English. So because he completed his high school in English, he can use this as the English proficiency requirement for the BBA program here at IAU. So the student submitted a letter directly from his institution, basically stating that the medium of instruction was in English. If the student didn't have such letter and they may have taken like an IELTS exam or a TOEFL exam, they can have submitted that too, and that would have been placed here under the resume. We also accept expired exams, so that's not an issue, just as long as they meet the minimum score required. Okay, so it's either a standardized exam, if they've previously completed any education in the US, or if they have, again, completed a program where the language of instruction was in English, and they have supporting evidence such as a letter like this, they can use that to meet the requirement. So we do need a clear scanned copy of the applicant's passport photo page. So I'm just emphasizing that we only need a copy of the photo page. We don't need scanned copies of the entire booklet. We only need this information as this is basically what we rely on and the most accurate information when it comes to the student's name, date of birth, and things like that. And we also want to inform you that students have to have a passport that is valid for more than 6 months from the program start date. Okay, if the student's passport will expire within the next 3 to 4 months, we will have to request that the student submit an updated passport or a receipt that they are waiting to receive their updated passport, or that they are waiting for an appointment to renew their passport. But their updated passport will have to be submitted within a certain time frame, and our admissions team will follow up with the applicant on this document. So again, specifically for initial applicants, if they are planning to travel, apply for, you know, a F1 visa at the U.S. Embassy or Consulate, and if they are approved for their visa, they will need a valid passport to travel and enter the U.S. So just something to keep in mind when evaluating a passport is the date that it will expire. And again, just a copy of the photo page, not the entire booklet. After the passport requirement is the financial capability or the bank statement or bank certificate requirement. So this specific student submitted a bank certificate. This is acceptable as it does state the student's name, the date. So the bank statement or bank letter has to be valid for at least 90 days from the application deadline. So it has to be a very recent statement or certificate. The statement or certificate, again, has to include the student's name so that we know that the funds are easily accessible to them, and the amount that they have so that we can assure that it meets the minimum requirement. Our 3 programs each have separate financial requirements, just depending on which one. So if the bank statement or certificate reflects that they meet that or they exceed that, then the document is acceptable. Okay. If the currency is in anything other than US dollars, that's fine. Our admissions team will basically go ahead and use a currency converter and just assure that when we do convert the funds, that it is at least or more than the minimum that is required. If the bank certificate or the bank statement is not under the applicant who is applying, if it's under their name and they're planning on having a sponsor, such as a family, friend, parent, support them while they're studying here in the US, they must submit a bank statement under the sponsor's name, and they will also have to submit our IAU affidavit of support, which again can be found on our downloads page as well. So for section 1, the student will go ahead and fill out their information. For section 2, the sponsor will go ahead and input their information here. The relationship to the student, their first name. For section 3, this is the most crucial part of the document, especially item C, which you'll see here is like boxed in red. So the sponsor will have to include how much they intend to provide the student for monthly support. The amount that they place here, when multiplied by 12, has to be at least or past the minimum amount that the student is required to have as financial capability. This information, again, is very crucial when generating the I-20 because there is a specific section for financial capability. Okay, so the student has to be able to basically pay for at least one academic year of their studies at IAU. So item C is very crucial. And lastly, the sponsor will go ahead and have to sign with a live signature. We do not accept digital signatures for the affidavit of support, unfortunately, and they will also have to date the document here. An additional requirement apart from the bank statement and affidavit of support is that the sponsor will also have to submit a copy of a government-issued photo ID. Typically, we do ask that they submit a passport just because the information is usually already in English, and again, it's just the most accurate way to verify. But if they submit any type of other government-issued photo ID, as long as it's in English and we can confirm the name on the passport or government ID matches the name on the affidavit of support and the bank statement for the person who will be sponsoring the applicant. And I'm just going to go back quickly to the bank statement because we want to also be sure that when we're evaluating the bank statement, we make sure that the funds are liquid funds. So typically that would be a checkings or a savings account. We do not accept any investments, stocks, or anything that the applicant or the sponsor does not have immediate access to. So these are just a few things to look at when evaluating the bank statement. And typically, there are times where students will submit extra documents, such as a letter of recommendation. This isn't necessary for any applicants applying for the ASBA, BBA, or MBA program. However, 2 letters of recommendation are required for the doctorate program. But if the student is applying for the MBA and they want to submit a letter of recommendation, that's fine. They can submit that, but it won't really be evaluated or isn't required for this specific program. So once all of the documents are compiled in this specific order, as listed on the admissions portfolio checklist, we do ask that applicants or agents compile all the documents in one PDF, as you see here. Okay, so compile them in one PDF in the order listed under the checklist, and that they save the file and name it. We go by last name, comma, first name, underscore ADM, which is short for admissions, underscore portfolio. If the student does not have a last name or a surname, then they would just input their first name here, no comma, underscore ADM, underscore portfolio. So the application should come in as one PDF in this naming convention. Once they have the applicant or the agent has compiled this, they will go ahead and email it to admissions@iaula.edu. So we do ask that there be a pre-screening so that we can efficiently review these documents, these admissions portfolios, and get the admissions packages and initial I-20s out so that students can basically make their appointment for their visa interview and have time to just get settled, and if they have to come to the US, if they are approved for their visa, that everything is done efficiently and correctly. So we hope that this video was useful. It was basically just a step-by-step tutorial, and we hope that we were able to cover all of the revisions and pre-screening that needs to be done in order to determine that there is a complete admissions portfolio that is ready to be evaluated. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope you found this video helpful. Bye-bye.